and then we should be good to go. Let me know where you're from. As usual, if you have any questions, I'll be taking those after I go through the kind of lesson portion at the beginning of this video. But hopefully you are doing well. Make sure we're live and then we'll get started. All right, I think we are live. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and welcome to another live video here on YouTube. And, well, the English Fluency Guide today is going to tell you about motivation and mindset and the psychology of learning, as I like to talk about. I haven't talked about this in a while, but some people have asked me questions about staying motivated to learn, and I wanted to talk about this in detail. So hopefully this should be an entertaining video for you. Even the people who are really working hard and really doing their best, they can still get frustrated. So I hope people can find value in this video. And also, this is not just for language learners. I'll be talking about this specifically in the context of language learning, but this is really for people trying to do anything. And this is really because there are many things people would like to do, but for whatever reason, people don't get motivated or they just can't find a way to do the thing they want to do. So I want to break this down for you. It's really two steps as far as I see it. This has been very helpful for me and my students, and hopefully it will be helpful for you as well. But let me know if you have questions. After we go through this, we can talk about other things, but excuse me, I wanted to talk about this because I think it will be really helpful for people. And yeah, let's get started. I think we're working here. Nice to see people. I'll keep an eye on the chat as usual, but hello, nice to see everybody there. Oh, and happy 4th of July, says TJ. Yes, in Japan, it is July 4th. I was actually speaking with some people 2 days ago, and I forgot it was 4th of July in the United States, or it will be 4th of July in the United States. So because I'm living in Japan, I forget about like American holidays. So I was like, oh yeah, it's like a holiday. And I think people get a long weekend, which is nice. A long weekend. This is like when you get Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, or also Monday, or some combination of things like that. All right, so let's talk about motivation. Again, this is for people who want to do anything, but the people typically watching my channel are trying to get fluent in English, but it should help you get fluent in English or whatever language, or help you just be able to do whatever it is you're feeling stuck about doing. All right, I want to keep this very simple because I think it's actually a simple. Like the reality is quite simple, but in our minds we make it a much more complicated process, and it doesn't have to be, but hopefully this should make sense. So there are two basic pieces of how motivation works, and by motivation I mean how we think about things or how we react to particular situations. And so if you think about, like, let's say there's a person here, and they want to get to a particular place. We'll just put a flag here, like this is the goal the person wants to reach. And so there might be, there's like the physical thing, whatever that thing is, we'll just put kind of like a rock over here, just as kind of like an obstacle there. But there are also the additional mental obstacles. I'll just put like kind of a little brain over here too. And if you can overcome both of these things, then you become, fluent, or you can get whatever it is you're looking for. And I'm going to explain to you how this process works. It's actually quite simple. I know it can seem like a very frustrating or difficult thing, but we'll look at these two things individually first, and then hopefully this should make sense. But do let me know if you have any questions. Again, this has been very helpful for me. I'll tell you a quick story about it in just a moment. Actually, let me just tell you the story first. It's probably a better way to do it. But I came to Japan in 2003, and for the first year, I was still trying to learn Japanese the traditional way by studying textbooks. And there weren't really, YouTube wasn't even available until 2006, I think. And even at that point, there were no people really teaching online or anything. So really, most of the learning was still just traditional textbooks, or maybe you could find a teacher or something. But I was trying to learn Japanese the traditional way. And I was really struggling. I couldn't improve. I was able to understand people a little bit, but I really couldn't express myself. It was very frustrating. I couldn't find my words. All of the typical kinds of things that most people learning languages experience. But once I discovered how to learn, then the learning process finally made sense to me. I'll explain more about that in this video, but I'm trying to tell you the quick version of the story. And I started making some progress. So it took me about a year, and even before I came to Japan, I had already failed to learn 3 different languages, so Spanish, Latin, and French. I failed to learn those before I came to Japan. So then I failed to learn Japanese in Japan for the first year, and I was very frustrated again, but once I figured out how to learn, which I can go into more detail in this video about, the process became a lot easier. But so the first kind of obstacle was the how to do the thing. So what to do, how to actually become fluent, what to do. And then the second thing was I was still kind of stuck because I'm still at this point trying to learn by myself. So I didn't know exactly how. I knew that I should become fluent. I should learn Japanese as a first language and try to understand it like a native as best I could. But being by myself, it was really difficult to figure out how to do that. And I tried going to teachers, but everyone just taught me the traditional way. So I really had to try to do this by myself. And so I still had lots of frustrating moments where I would try to learn something and I couldn't understand it because I'm basically trying to teach myself the language the way a native would learn it, which is really difficult, especially even before we had things like YouTube videos or whatever, even any kind of video content really learning the language other than stuff on Japanese TV. And so I still had, even though I knew what to do, the path was basically clear, I still had lots of doubts, lots of worries, lots of just the typical kinds of issues that people go through when they're learning languages. And so what happened was, even though I was making a little bit of progress, maybe you've experienced this too, like something positive happens and you feel good, and other days you're maybe trying to speak and you don't really feel so confident about the way you speak. You get this up and down a little bit as you improve. Hopefully over the long term you are trending up, but typically there's a little bit of up and down like that as you learn. And so I was actually teaching English at a school. Where was this? In Kyoto, actually, at the time when this happened to me. But there was a mother there. I was teaching her son, and she said, "Oh, your Japanese is really good." And I was thinking Japanese people are usually very friendly, very kind about giving compliments, even if they think your Japanese is not very good. It's really encouraging you, but typically if your Japanese is not so good, they will tell you it's good. But if your Japanese is good, they usually don't say anything. They just have a regular conversation with you. But anyway, that's part of the culture over here. So when she said that to me, I actually felt like a rush of confidence. And I was like, oh, actually, wow, I guess I'm actually, sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm making progress, but I was able to speak with her and she was complimenting me on my Japanese. But at the same time, in that same moment, I remembered that her son, he was basically the same age as, so he was, 5 or 6 years old or something. And that's about how long I had been in Japan at that point. So I had been in Japan, went back to America, came back to Japan. But when I was teaching there, I realized her son, he is younger than me. Well, obviously he's younger than me, but he was, 5 or 6 years old or something. And I had been learning Japanese for about the same amount of time, and he was speaking better Japanese than I was. And so I realized that I'm learning for let's just say whatever the amount of time is, I'm learning Japanese for this amount of time, and he is learning Japanese for the same amount of time. Actually, it was less, but his Japanese speaking ability was way better. Now, this makes sense. Obviously, this is a child born and getting way more exposure to Japanese than I was getting. But still, in my mind, I was just comparing this kid was speaking better than I was. And I got very, very frustrated about it at that moment. So basically I was, at first, like she gave me this compliment, I was feeling a little bit of high, but immediately I went back down because I was feeling very frustrated that I had made some progress, but like, look, you know, in the same amount of time, this child had made way more progress than I had. For obvious reasons, but still, okay? Pardon the fire truck as usual, or the ambulance or whatever. So again, I was feeling good, and then I was feeling bad, but then in that same moment, I realized, wait a minute, like this is my chance to actually do something and like prove that I can become a fluent speaker, even though I'm not born in the country. And so it was like a roller coaster almost. So I was feeling high, and then I was feeling really low, and then I went back up again because I was feeling like, I felt like what I call the fire. I was really excited. I was really like, you know what, I can do this. If this little kid can speak well, I can probably learn to speak well too. That's basically the way I thought about it. But again, all of this stuff over here, it really had nothing to do with the actual learning path. It was just in my mind. And the interesting thing was that once I had this kind of fire in me, it, like all of the other little worries or doubts, they didn't matter anymore. Okay? So the kind of two phases about this, I wanted to tell this story first, but I'll show you this in another way in just a moment. But the basic idea is that all of the little doubts that you might have about, like, I don't know if something will work, or like, I don't know if I can do it, or maybe that worked for someone else, but it won't work for me, or I don't have enough time, or whatever. There's like a thousand of these little doubts. And so let's talk about that, the process in a bit more detail right here. I really want to make sure people understand this, because if you have that fire, you will find a way to do something. Okay, you will figure it out. All right, and the goal obviously is to try to make the path as simple and easy as possible, but then you still have yourself to find that fire for. If you don't, then you will probably find some kind of excuse to not do something, because that's just what humans do. Either we get lazy, or we are nervous or tired or whatever, but we will find lots of excuses, and we only need just like a simple excuse to not do something. So that's why you need really something very strong to want to do it. So for me, it was like kind of pride and embarrassment, and I really wanted to prove I could do it. So let's look at the actual path here, and we'll contrast two different people trying to accomplish something. So remember, I mentioned before about having something you want to do, and then there's actually the mental part, the psychology of doing that thing. So if we imagine, like, we'll draw another version of this person down here. Make sure you can see that. So this first person over here, let's say they want to climb up this wall over here, and they don't really have any tools to do anything. The goal is to get up here, so we'll put our little flag up at the top of that. But this person is not really tall enough. They don't have tools. They don't have, a ladder or a jetpack or something like that would allow this person to easily climb the wall. And so in this case, the path itself, we'll just put path right here. So that, remember I mentioned the first part about this, there's the path part, and then there's the, like that fire part over here, or it's basically the mental part of doing something. So here the path is actually quite difficult. So it doesn't matter, there really isn't, there's not much like mental thinking about that. Maybe there is some way, but let's say it's actually physically impossible to do this kind of thing. Like, just being able to climb up here. So this person has no tools, they have nothing, it's just not like they're in a prison or something. So it's just physically not possible for them to do this. So in that case, the path is actually blocked, and they'll need to maybe find a different way to do something. But they don't need to think much about the psychology, because it's physically impossible to do. Now, what usually happens with regular people trying to do things is it looks more like this, where you've got some kind of staircase where it actually is quite easy, or it's certainly possible to do something. Okay. And so in this case, like it's not like perfectly easy. It's not, I mean, ideally, you would have almost like a slide. You just like sit down on the slide and there you go. That would be the easiest way to do something. So it's easier just to sit down on the slide and slide down and get what you want. But typically that doesn't happen. Usually there's some kind of effort involved. But the path is usually easier than something that's actually physically impossible. All right. And so once you get this is where the psychology part, the mental, the mindset part comes in, our little brain over here. And this is where we start thinking of excuses why we can't do something. Okay. So remember, like, I really want to make this clear. If something is not possible, we don't really spend much time thinking about it because it's just not possible. We just think, oh, it's not possible. But if something actually is, and like we've seen other people do it, we know it is possible. We can imagine how it would work. It's like it's actually possible to do something. And we have lots of good reason to believe that it is possible. It might not be perfectly easy, like going down a slide. There might be some kind of effort or work to do, but still it's possible to do something, all right? So this thing is impossible, so we don't really think much about the mental side. But here, as soon as something is actually possible, it's really like the more possible something is, the more people worry about it. This is just it's a really interesting thing about people, and if you can control this part of yourself, you can usually accomplish much more than you think or a lot of people would just stop and not do something. Okay, so. When we think something is possible and that we probably could do it, this is where we start thinking like, well, maybe I better not do that thing. Okay? So we use the brain to take something and make it impossible, if that makes sense. So we're taking something here. Again, in this situation, you don't need to think much about it. It's a physically impossible thing to do, so we don't think about it. But here it is possible. We see that it's possible. We see other people doing that thing, and we know it is possible to do. But we think, well, I don't know, maybe I don't have time to do that, or I don't know, like exactly how to do that. I need somebody to guide me at like very, each step all the way. What if I make a mistake? What if I do something? All these thoughts come in here. And so at this point, when something is possible, this is where you need to find some reason, even if it's not like a logical, positive reason. So in my case for getting fluent in Japanese, like I wanted to get fluent, like I already wanted to get fluent, but I was still like some days I'm thinking like, oh, I don't want to do anything, or this is frustrating, or I'm still making excuses. But I stopped making excuses once I got that fire. Once I saw like a little kid who spoke better than me. And this still happens to me today. Like I was at a coffee shop not that long ago, and a woman just like working at the coffee shop was like, oh, you speak Japanese really well. And I said, oh, well, thank you. Again, it's the same kind of situation. And she said, how long have you been here? And I said, oh, like, I don't know, 20 years or whatever. And she was like, oh, that's longer than I've been alive, She was 18 or something like that. It's basically the exact same situation. And so like I feel good that I've made progress, but when I compare myself to like a regular native, then I think, oh, I'm not working hard enough. I could be doing this better. So again, like that's the kind of fire thing that you actually use, and that cancels out all of the other pretty weak excuses that people have about doing things. So like not being able to find time, like everybody has time and everybody finds time to do the things they want to do, especially the things they have to do. So that's a mental like a mental constraint or a mental issue that we're putting on the situation that's not really there. We just create this with our minds. All right. So if you have that fire, like the fire, it should be stronger or more powerful than any of these other little concerns you have. And if you have that, then you will make progress. You will make it up here. You will find that way to do the thing. And again, if the path itself is easy and you have the strong determination to do that thing, and it doesn't need to be like super strong. Again, like most times we want to do something. And we just need, there may be like a few small excuses why we don't do that thing. So we really want that thing, we should do that thing, but because there is some effort, there's always some effort. All right, you have to do something, like even if it's just like watching a video or reading a book or something like that. There is some kind of effort that's required to do something. We will think of many excuses. But I want to remind you that the excuses are usually not that powerful, and they're easy to easy to cancel out if you have a really strong reason to do something. Now, another reason in my life that's also very strong is I have 2 children. And specifically for me learning Japanese, I look at them and like their Japanese is really good. They're basically living in a native environment, and they spend much more time with Japanese than they do with English. So I have to be very good about how I teach them when I do have time to teach them. But when I see them, and like my older daughter, who is 8 years old now, she can speak well, and also like her ability to write Japanese characters, she is learning those. And so that's giving me a lot of motivation, like to not be embarrassed that my child can write better or speak better or whatever than I can. Okay, so it's not like a logical comparison where I'm saying that of course a native speaker is probably going to learn like faster than I am just because they have more opportunities, or she's spending all day at school and talking with people all day. There are lots of good reasons why she would become a good speaker. It's a natural kind of thing. But for me, there is some kind of effort required to do that. There's not much, but again, like if there's any kind of effort at all, then that's where we start thinking about excuses or reasons why something would not happen. Okay, but I'm trying to show you how the whole process works, and this is really, again, how it's worked for me, but typically how it works for really anybody trying to do something. So if something is possible, we've seen other people do it, like, earning money or becoming a professional singer or whatever, like many people do that. All right, or many people do that. If nobody is able to do a thing, like if nobody is able to breathe underwater, that's an actual physical impossible thing. So unless you have tools like, some breathing equipment or something. But if you're not able to breathe underwater, we don't feel bad about that. We don't spend any time thinking about that. We don't make any excuses or reasons why something won't happen or whatever. We don't think about that at all. But when something is possible, you will feel your brain telling you these things like, hey, maybe we can't do that. What will other people think if we make a mistake? You have all these little voices inside your head that make you think about that. So you need something stronger than those voices if you want to achieve what you want. If you want to get what you want, you need to find that thing. And it can be, like me, like embarrassment or pride or whatever. You can use that to power your way through something. Okay? So specifically on the part of learning English, like when I figured out how to do that, I spent a lot of time trying to make the path very simple. So like many, many years, and I'm still doing that today. So 20 years ago, like in 2004, about 20 years ago, that's when I found that I needed to learn Japanese as a first language, and that's why I've been teaching English as a first language for 20 years, because it works. And it's the easiest thing I've found to get fluent, and it's been my way of helping people get fluent, like better than anything else I've found. But people still have lots of excuses about why they can't do something. So even if I make the path, it could even be like a very gentle slope, and I'm gonna sit and like basically pull you up this thing. And this is specifically for my students, people who are trying to get fluent. If you can master this, all you need is one good reason why you can do something. One good reason. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. So this is not a really difficult idea. But if you're thinking about this and you remember this as you're trying to do something, really look for that thing. Look for that real reason why you want to do something. So you might even have a logical reason, like I need to pass the TOEIC test at a particular score so I can get a job or whatever. So maybe that's like a logical thing you want, but that might not be motivating enough for you to not make excuses. Okay, so maybe you're thinking about, I need to pass a particular test and get a job, and that sounds like a good idea. That's kind of your logical reason for doing something. But I'm saying you need that fire. You need that like real, like a stronger thing, like my brother said I couldn't do it, like that kind of thing. And and this is typically when you're watching a movie. This is the kind of thing you see in a movie. It's usually like a not so logical reason to do something, but it's more motivating to you than just having a logical goal like, hey, I can get a better job. Like, yeah, like a lot of people, and this is why it seems very confusing to people. Like, hey, why don't you just do this thing? It will earn you more money, or it will help you get the girl you want, or whatever, like any kind of thing like that. So it's because they don't have that. There's that kind of like fire thing that you really need in order to get what you want. All right. Now, if you don't have any excuses at all, that's great. Just go up and go get the thing you want. But a lot of us, we will still have some kind of excuses or fears or doubts or whatever reasons it is, that will stop us from getting what we want. So focus on the particular thing. I remember hearing stories about Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan was already a fantastic basketball player, but he still created these reasons in his head, these kind of illogical or emotional, or I guess it's better to say non-logical, but like an emotional reason why he was going to do something well. So I think I remember one story where he was talking about, he said like a player on a different team was saying bad things about him, that the player did not, and like he didn't know, the player had no idea about this. But in Jordan's mind, he was thinking, that guy is saying I can't play. Are you kidding me? I'm the greatest basketball player ever. That guy is saying I can't play, and of course Michael Jordan goes out and shoots, I don't know, 50 points or something like that. But like it's all in his head, okay? So the goal is it's usually not that big of a deal, but because it's easy to do, that's when we get more doubts about that thing. So in order to counteract that, to fight against that, you need to have some strong reason, and I just call it the fire, because it's basically a kind of non-logical, emotional thing that like you really need to do that thing for some reason. Okay, whatever that is, and again, it's different from the particular goal you have of using English, or getting a job, or getting a date, or whatever the particular goal is. You want to become a good swimmer or basketball player or something. You have to have that fire, and that's what's going to get you the thing you want. All right. Now I'll go back and check comments, but hopefully this makes sense. What I've done, I'll add this specifically for people who are learning English, is the process of fluency really works in this same way, where we want to communicate, we know what we want to say, but we have lots of doubts that stop us from speaking. And so very few people will try to start speaking if they feel doubt anyway. So it's a very rare person who will say things and they don't care about being correct or whatever. Some people will do that, but maybe they don't get a job or whatever. But is kind of a trade-off there. But most people, they experience some kind of doubt about trying to learn or trying to do something, and specifically with English, if you can remove those doubts, that's when you actually start speaking. And so this is why, I made my program like Fluent for Life. This is why I try to make it basically as smooth as possible. So the actual path to get fluent is very easy, but the thing that I can't really control is all of the learners and the mental or the psychological part of learning that they bring to the program. So it doesn't matter, you could have like a really good gym program or a learning program or doing whatever. It's all of this stuff over here. And so I wish I could reach into your brain and give people that fire, but it really has to come from you, okay? So I can do everything I can to make the path very simple and easy, and it was frustrating for me because I was the one building it. I had to figure out how to do that thing. But if you have the path, and usually it's almost like I mentioned before, the path itself, if the path is really easy, then more people have doubts about taking that next step. So if the path is really difficult, then people don't really think about it anyway. But if it looks possible, more people will think, well, maybe I better not do that. Especially like if something is easy and I still fail. So if something is really easy and I still fail, how will I look? Okay, so if something is really difficult and I fail, then nobody will care about that. That's an easy thing. Everybody understands that. But if something looks easy and I make a mistake, then people are going to laugh at me or something. And so that's a big worry for a lot of people. That's understandable. So you need to have that fire, whatever that is. You need to find that thing or create that thing the same way Michael Jordan did. I think Tom Brady, he was a quarterback. I don't know if he still plays or not, but like one of the best quarterbacks ever, American football player, like American football, with the this kind of ball, not soccer. And so he would do the same thing. He would think, he was like, what are they saying? Like, I can't play anymore? Like, news writers or something, sports writers are saying, well, Tom Brady can't play anymore. He's not a very good player. And then he goes out and wins another Super Bowl. This is like the championship of American football. And so again, like he has his reason for doing something. And it's basically like an emotional thing, okay? So whatever that thing is, like be clear about that. And this is not just for learning English, it's for doing anything you'd like to do. All right. So you can have lots of motivation to learn English, for example, but maybe you don't have lots of motivation to get a better job or to, get a wife or a husband or, whatever you care about, whatever that thing is. So think less, as long as you have a particular goal, think less about like the actual thing that you're getting and more like this kind of the fire part here that you need to find, okay? Because it's these things over here, none of this is real. It's all just stuff we create in our minds. So we should create something good to overcome all that stuff that we create that's not so good, that's not actually helping us, okay? So the steps you might take if you go to the gym and you try to exercise and you want to lose weight or put on muscle, whatever your goal is, the path is very clear. People have been doing that for a very long time. But the reason people don't, like some people do and some people don't, it's all over here. It's all in the mental part of that, how we think, how we feel about something. But if you look, it's not really that complicated of a process. You have the thing you want to do and the way you think about that. Okay, so it's actually quite simple, and the easier something is, the more possible, the more people are doing something, the more doubts you will have in your mind. So just have something. You need to have that fire from somewhere, create that thing, whatever that thing is, but it should give you a lot of motivation to do whatever it is you want to do. And then as you're getting started, you need this kind of less and less because you actually see you're making progress, and this thing becomes like its own thing that's powering you. So now, like, I don't really think about this so much. I mean, I like remember the story, and if I'm ever reminded, like, man, I'm kind of lazy to improve today, or I think about my kids, like, wait a minute, my child used a word that I don't know, so I better learn that word. I feel bad, and I use that to keep me motivated to do the thing. All right. So instead of focusing on the particular logical thing, which probably is a good idea for your life, focus on this other one over here, whatever that is. Create that idea, get excited about something. But if you have this, the fire should be stronger than any of these other little things, and you won't think about those doubts anymore because, well, what if somebody laughs at me? It's like, well, they're already laughing at me because I can't speak as well as, I want to speak. So I better just do the thing anyway. All right, so my kids are already knowing some words or using vocabulary I don't know, so I have to work harder, and it's like my personal pride, which is just emotional. There is nothing logical there about achieving the goal, but I'm using that to achieve the goal, okay? So as you're trying to do something, you want to find obviously an easy path to do it, the easiest path you can, but remember this over here. So if you're feeling unmotivated or you're trying to do something but you feel lots of doubts, that's it's basically your mind telling you, hey, you need to have a really good reason to do something. So it's much more difficult, like when people say just ignore the fear. I'll just kind of end this conversation talking about this last little bit here. So if you try to ignore the fear, or you try to, if we like logically clear this up, like in like a sales process or whatever, like people are like, well, I don't have time. It's like, well, okay, when will you have time? You know, do you want this thing or not? Like when is the time where you're going to actually have time? And the reality is most people have time. Nobody's really that busy. You know, people spend an hour looking at their phone or whatever, wasting lots of time. Nobody is really that efficient with their time. But the problem with that strategy, like you're trying to deal with each one of these objections in your own mind. So, okay, I don't have time, or what if I make a mistake, or whatever. Like trying to deal with all these is a really difficult thing because it's never ending. You will always find more reasons to not do something. It's really easy to find reasons to not do something. So if you, like, whatever your goal is, it's very, very easy for the mind, because we're lazy, we don't want to actually make an effort to do something, to find a reason not to do it. Like, well, maybe I don't really need that thing. Maybe I don't really care. You know, maybe I should do something else. Or I'm tired, or maybe other people will think about me, or what will my mom say, or, you know, whatever. There's an infinite number of these little objections that people have, or doubts or whatever, but they're not really very powerful, okay? So instead of trying to kill one doubt, you should just make one thing that's stronger than all of these. I'm trying to kind of draw this at a level for you so you can see the strength of each of these things. So you just need something like the power of this thing outweighs, or it's bigger or stronger than all of these other things over here, okay? So for me personally, my personal example is feeling pride, or feeling shame, or feeling, you can take these kind of like the 7 deadly sins or whatever, and actually use that for your benefit. So if people are saying I'm not actually very good at what I do, I would say, well, what are you talking about? I'm going to prove to you that I can do that thing, okay? So even if nobody else is actually saying anything, you can create that in your mind. And if Michael Jordan and Tom Brady are doing that, like anybody could do that, all right? So these people who are like at the very top of their professional career are still creating this fire in their mind, like then we should probably try doing that too. And remember, this is the easy part over here. It's just mental. So all you need is like, oh, I just need a good reason to do something. All right. So don't worry about trying to address like all of these things over here, like, well, I don't have time, or I don't have whatever. Like, find this thing. Now you can let me know in the comments if you have a particular thing, like what is this reason? This is like the hidden reason why you're trying to do something. So it could be like maybe some people laughed at my English at work, and now I want to show them that I can actually speak. All right, it could be something like that. That's a good reason to actually become a good speaker. Now, as you learn and improve, you won't really care about those people anymore, which is fine. You'll actually be focusing on the real goal. But to get started, especially at the beginning, or if you feel like, you know, someday you're feeling not so motivated or whatever, you have to have this thing in your mind to remember that. Okay? All right, I'll go back and look at chat, but if you have any questions about this, it should be pretty clear. Remember, just a quick recap about this. If the thing you're trying to do is actually impossible, like really impossible, then you won't be thinking at all about reasons not to do it, because it's already impossible to do. But if something is possible, and we see other people doing that thing, like other people are exercising and getting fit, or other people are learning to play the guitar, or, you know, whatever that thing is, then that's where we start having the doubts about it ourselves. Like, well, that person is special, or I just don't have time to do that, or, you know, maybe like other people will laugh at me if I make a mistake doing that. That's all these little things, and it's just going on inside your own head. Okay, it's all in you, and that means you can control it. All right, but the smarter way to control it is not by trying to like logically address all these fears. You just have to have something stronger that's more powerful than these other things here. Okay, so like I explain to people sometimes when I talk about confidence in English, if you see a child drowning in water, and maybe you're like nervous about swimming yourself, like you would probably just jump in and try to save that child anyway. You would probably find a way to do that because that motivation is stronger than whatever fear you have. So you're not trying to talk yourself out logically out of this. You really need to find this trigger here that's actually going to give you the motivation. That's where the motivation comes from. All right, let me look at chat, and if you do have any questions about this or anything else, we can talk about that. All right, where did we start? Let's see, Tom says, good morning. Alexander, good evening. Yes, it is typically the mornings here in Japan when I do these, so it is, what time is it? 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Good morning from Thailand. Everton says, greetings from Brazil. I turn on my cell phone's notification just to watch your lives. Well, I'm very curious, like, why do people continue to watch my lives? Are these helpful for you? Let me know if they are. And if you know other people who would benefit, then please like the video. Just click the like button. And then also tell anybody else. Share the videos. Let's see. Yes, here in Brazil, it is evening. Baracco says, hi, good afternoon. And ASDF, good morning from Nanjing. Nice to see you there. And Annette from Wisconsin. Let's see. Menelin says, good morning from Dominican Republic. Let's see, Cam says, good morning. Nice to see you, Danielle. Hello again, teacher, and everyone. Here we go again. Yes, we're back. Meg says hello from Brazil. Hassam says hello from Morocco. Excited. Persona, good morning, Drew. These days it's raining, and that's why I've got to take joining your lives. Well, welcome to the program. Yes, we are kind of, I guess, still in the middle of the rainy season in Japan. It's a little bit cloudy, but we don't have any rain, I think, for the next week, which is nice, but we'll see. I remember a few years ago, there was actually just a month. It was really like a few weeks of just heavy rain all day, like we were in a rainforest or something. Nas says, great job, and Sam says, hello, saludos from Mexico. Eritrea and Ohio. Oh, okay, I see. And Juan says, hey there, I really need advice about that. I started with the course 4 months ago, and I've read only 2 lessons. I quit again. Oh, no. Why did you quit? So remember, for any program, like, think about whatever it is, whether it's trying to learn English or get fit and exercise. Don't think about like the logical goal. I know it seems like a good idea, but the psychology here is much more powerful if you can use that. And as an example, I remember hearing some interesting advice about credit cards. I'll just share this with you now because it really goes along with this anyway, because we're talking about the mind. But let's say you have 2 different credit cards. So this credit card, you have, let's see, $2,000 you need to pay on this credit card. And this credit card over here is, like $100 or whatever. And so this credit card is like 2% interest, and this credit card is 18% interest. I don't want to do a lot of math, but basically we really want to make sure we're canceling out. Even though this credit card, it's going to be costing us more money, and I'm not really setting up this example very well, but basically we would be paying more money each month with this credit card. But the psychology thing here is your brain is just looking at 2 credit cards. The brain is not really thinking about how much the money is. It's just thinking, well, I've got 2 credit cards, and this one I can pay this one off much faster. I should pay that one off faster. So now I only have 1 credit card to pay off. So it looks like I've done half of the work. All right. So this is like a good reason. Again, the power of the mind. You can use and our minds don't work perfectly. Like we have to kind of train our minds and use them in the right way. But if you can create that fire for yourself, then you will easily find a way to do what you want to do. All right. So in every instance in my life, not just for language learning, but for doing anything. I mean, even think about me being in the United States and then traveling to a new country. That's for some people, you could have lots of reasons why that's a bad idea. Or maybe you don't have time, or maybe you should, start your career first and then think about going back later to travel or do something like that. There are lots of good reasons. That's a pretty big thing to do. That's a big decision. But for me, I had that fire. I need to really be out here. I just had to do it. And so that's why I did it. So I wasn't thinking so much about the logical part. I was using that fire that I had in order to get out into Japan. All right. So when you're thinking about whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter if it's language learning or, whatever the course is. So this is why you can have one course, like the same course, and you could have 5 different people go through that program, and one person could just go through it really easily and just do very well. And maybe one person starts and they just don't do anything with it. They don't open up any of the programs or lessons or whatever. And the program didn't change. It's the different people who are trying and thinking about things in a different way. But if one person can do something, other people can probably do that thing too. And if 2 people can do it, then definitely other people can do that thing. I remember one of my favorite movies, especially when I was young. This is a movie called The Edge. It's a movie with... what was his name? Anthony Hopkins and I forget, Alec Baldwin. And it's about 2 guys, actually 3 guys that get kind of lost out in the Alaskan wilderness. So they're out in the woods, and they have to find a way back home. And at one point in the movie, Anthony Hopkins says, what one man can do, another can do. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, obviously there are some times when maybe only one person, if you imagine Shaquille O'Neal, a really huge basketball player, there are not many people that are like Shaquille O'Neal. And that's fine. I'm not trying to be a, fantastic, a 7'2", extra large basketball player. But for most things that people want to do, there's usually more than one person who can achieve at that thing. Okay, so you should get good at this thing over here. This is the thing to get good at, and then this thing follows very easily from that. All right, so if you are on fire, if you feel that fire inside you for whatever the goal is, then the goal becomes very easy, even if it's something that's a bit more tricky to do. All right. So if whatever your thing is, I know it seems logical, your parents will tell you a logical reason to do something, you should go to college so you can get a job, and the logical part of that, it's just not very exciting. It doesn't really move us and motivate us to do something. But if we have a really strong desire to do something, this is why people talk about the desire, the fire, to do something. If you have that, then it's quite easy to accomplish many things. All right. So yes, whatever, if you're in any kind of course or trying to learn something or do something or go to the gym or learn an instrument or whatever, get that fire, whatever that thing is. So you guys can let me know in the comments if you have a particular thing, what is your reason for, in this case, learning English or for doing whatever. But make it a powerful emotional thing. Don't just say, well, I have to get a job or I have to pass the TOEIC test. Your brain doesn't care about that. we are not, you have to think about many years of human design for our brains and our kind of evolution over really long periods of time. We're not really motivated by the TOEIC test, but we are motivated by getting some girl or boy or whatever you're interested in or trying to impress some kind of people. It's the emotional thing that's going to motivate you. So you need to find that trigger, whatever that is. But if you have a good one, then everything else becomes very easy to do, especially if the path itself is easy. So I know for people going to the gym, the path, it is a little bit challenging because you actually have to get in, you have to go to the gym. That takes time, and you have to exercise, and you have to lift weights, and it gets kind of boring. You're just doing the same thing again and again, and it's just for a lot of people, yeah, it seems like it could be a waste of time. But you need to think about like what is the thing you're actually excited about. And so that's why I remember there was some ads many years ago. It was like a comic. I can't even remember. I'm not going to draw it very well. You know I'm not going to draw it very well. But I'll try to draw it here. So there were in the back of like little kids magazines, there would be ads for things just like there are ads in regular magazines. But this was an ad for, I think it was Charles Atlas, and Atlas was like he was just like a strong man, and he was teaching people how to exercise. And so he had it was a comic strip ad. You can probably just search this and find a better example of it, but the basic idea is that the ad is telling a story. So there was like a kind of weak looking, kind of guy. He had like a scrawny kid, and he had no muscles. And then he saw this kind of big guy over here, and he had some muscles, and he had a girlfriend, and he was like, oh wow, I really want that, And so when he thought about that, and like some other guys they're like teasing him or something because he's very small, and then he thought like, well, I got the fire from that. So you can give people the healthy reason to do something. Say it's like you probably shouldn't be overweight because it's bad for your body and you could die, or whatever that logical reason is. But people don't care about that. So it's very hard to tell them that in a logical way. And this is why we use stories in order to show people, like trying to give them a reason to get that fire. We're trying to put that fire into people. And so that's what I do often when I'm talking with learners about like, why are you really trying to learn? And so if they tell me something like, well, I want to pass the TOEIC test, or, I want to, get a job or something, I'm like, well, why is that important to you? So this is a good way to find that fire if you're not really feeling motivated. Think about what the real reason behind that thing is. So let's say like a man, like a young guy in college, he's kind of lazy and he's not really taking his classes, and his mother comes one day and is just talking with him and is saying like you're not working hard. What's going on here? I'm very disappointed in you. And if the boy cares about that, then he will make an effort to do better, to make his mom feel better. If he doesn't care about what his mom thinks, then he's not going to care. But he should find some reason to care about whatever that is. And so let's say he sees, like when he's out one day, he sees a lawyer, and this lawyer has like a happy family, and he's got his kids, and he meets this young man, and he's talking with him, and he says, oh, hey, what are you doing? And the kid says, well, I'm in college, and I'm not really like working very hard, but I just don't really feel very motivated. And the guy says, oh, what are you excited about? What is your fire? And like for me, it was like, I wanted to be like the man. I wanted to be able to control my own life and have a family, and whatever that thing is. And so when the young man heard that, he thought, oh, yeah, like that would be nice, And so he's thinking more of like, it's not about passing college. It's about like envisioning that actual life. All right. So when I talk with learners specifically, again, this is just, an example for anybody, but for people learning a language, don't think about the, passing a test, even if that's helpful for you. I'm sure it is, getting a job or passing a test. But think about why you want to do that thing. Why is it important for you to get that job? And if you think about like the person getting the job, it's usually because they have a family to support, or something like, I don't want to let my family down. I need to work very hard at what I'm doing because I don't know what my it would be awful if I failed and my family didn't do well. And this is why this is another. It's like a funny kind of meme or picture I saw recently. It was a kind of similar thing to this, but it showed a guy and women were kind of talking about him, and they were saying men only think about one thing. But then it was a picture of the guy. He was thinking like, I have to work harder. I have to care about my family. I'm like not doing a good enough job. Like, and this guy was putting lots of pressure on himself. He wasn't thinking about sex, which is the kind of the joke of the thing. But it's again, it all comes back to that fire that you're really excited about. Okay, so take the particular thing you want, whatever that goal is, like speaking English fluently, and think about why is it you want to have that? Why is that actually valuable for you? And if you think like, well, I would be able to, talk with people in my community, and so it's like, yeah, that's a good reason, but why is that reason important for you? And like, well, if I can talk with people well in my community, then like I will be respected. And that's like, oh, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to the fire over here. Okay, so instead of just thinking about like the logical goal, we're trying to get to that why, the deeper why, which will give you that fire for what you want to do. That's the thing that will actually motivate you. So like obviously people would agree being able to speak another language fluently is a really cool thing to do, just like playing the guitar or doing a martial art or whatever whatever that thing is. But the reason we actually do something is the deeper reason here, and that's what gives you the fire to do that thing. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, now I'm kind of going on and on about this, but I really want to make this idea very clear. When I'm talking with learners, this is the kind of thing I'm trying to get from them. So it's usually the deeper emotional things like I feel disrespected by my coworkers, or I just don't feel like I'm like as good as they are because they speak better. And the same thing I was just talking about at the beginning of this video, like me comparing myself to a young child, and it doesn't matter if the comparison is real or not, or fair or not. The point is, does it give me the fire to do something? All right. So if you have particular things, I'd love to know why you are trying to learn English or trying to do whatever the thing is, whatever it is you're trying to do. All right, let's go back and make sure we get all these questions over here. All right, Ness says, great job. I got these. I think I did these already. Always motivated. That's why I'm here. Glad to hear it, Diana. Nona says, I'm here to tell you, God bless you, teacher. Well, thank you. That's how I feel. Drew's the best person to do it. Foreign Still Trapping. That's an interesting name. Salmon with some little lovey heart faces over there. I guess you guys are talking with each other in there. Understanding you, I'm feeling motivated. Glad to hear it. Let's see. Sandra from Korea. Carlos, happy 4th of July. Hi, teacher Drew. Hi from Wisconsin. Well, more people from Wisconsin over there. You guys should have a little, like a club or something. Manuel, nice to see you there. Ranjit, everything depends on interest and motivation, then we can find time, says Ranjit. Yes, that's correct. And so it's easy to find time for the things you want to do. Like we basically find time or we make time, and it's important to realize you have control over that. So if we think like, I don't have time, you're saying you don't have control over your life. But if you think, I'm not making time, you're getting closer to finding that fire. Abdo says, thanks for this expensive information. You have a smart technique, teacher. That sounds come from the comfortable zone. If we listen to him, we can't anything new in our life. If I read that correctly. Excuse me. Richard says, I have to put in the hours to help me achieve my English goal. I consistently do it with determination, even though I may be a bit sluggish. However, I also reach the point. How to say on English. I don't know what that's referring to. But yes, if you're feeling motivated, again, the clearer you can be about doing something. For me, it's like not being embarrassed by my kids speaking better than me. That's my non-logical, very emotional reason. Like it's just a personal pride issue about learning. So would it be a good idea if I spoke well? Absolutely. But that's not a good enough reason for me, or, typically. It's a good reason. I think about it logically. But the illogical reason, the non-logical reason is I'm just Like, I don't want my children to speak better than me because that would be embarrassing. So I'm happy that they do speak very well, and that's great. But again, like, I'm using that in my mind. I create that fire to help me get what I want. All right, Hip says, I've seen your video on YouTube, and it's very helpful for me. Glad to hear. If you know other people who would enjoy the video, click the like button and share it. James says, speaking of motivation, how do you think of strong social pressure about learning English, especially from Korea, Japan or Korea, because sometimes psychologically blocks motivation of one? Yeah, there's certainly a lot of people trying. There's a lot of push to get people. I don't know so much about Korea, but certainly in Japan. And now they're lowering the age where people start learning the language. So like elementary school, 3rd and 4th graders, I think, in public schools. And they probably want to get that to 1st and 2nd graders as well, where people are starting to learn English. They're still not doing a very good job of teaching the language, but they're making more of an effort to do that thing. But I would not depend on outside motivation, like a person coming and telling you or your parents telling you to do something. The whole point of the fire is that it comes from inside you. Now, you create that thing. It might not even be like a real reason to do something. You're just, I'm getting angry about something, or I'm passionate about something, or I'm whatever. Like that's the reason I do something. And usually it comes back to like feeling loved or respect or included or whatever in relation to other people in your life. So that's why I mentioned the idea about like people having, like they're comparing each other at work. So this other guy is speaking really well at my job and he's doing well. I can see he's about to get promoted to do something else. I feel really disappointed that I can't do that. So I should actually think like, wait a minute, if that guy can do it, I can do that too. And then I will either like ask him, how do you do it, or find a good way to get what I want. But yes, like the problem with a lot of like typical ways of doing things is that they make the process more difficult. So if I go back to comparing specifically for language learners, and this is probably the same thing for trying to learn anything, but in general there are good ways of doing something and not so good or less efficient ways of doing things. And so when I first came to Japan, I spent a year trying to do things, what I'll just call learning Japanese as a second language, like the way people would learn English as a second language. And so in this way, I'm trying to study grammar rules and memorize translations, and I'm looking at flashcards and trying to remember words or write things down. But that wasn't really working for me. So the path itself was really frustrating. Okay, remember we've got these two pieces. There's a path here, and then we've got also the mental part of how we think about that. So the actual path to getting fluent in Japanese was like this. It was like the slope was possible. People were doing it, but it was actually quite difficult to do. And the reason is because like trying to remember grammar rules and translations, that's not a very efficient way to learn, and it's actually making it more difficult for you to speak, because how we learn is how we speak. So if we spend a lot of time thinking about like, I'm trying to translate in my mind when I learn, then of course I will have to translate when I speak, all right? So there are lots of good reasons why this way is much more difficult, okay? So we have, it is possible, but this way is more difficult to do it. And so fewer people will succeed doing that. And so again, if it is possible, even if it's difficult, then we will also have the mental reasons like, well, this is kind of, it's not really working very well for me, or I don't have time to do this, I'm not making much progress. Lots of those little reasons will come up in our mind about not wanting to do something. So you really need a very strong reason, that very strong fire to accomplish something, especially that's more difficult. All right. Now, once I discovered that, okay, there is a second way of learning, which is learning Japanese as a first language, and this is why I teach English as a first language. And by first language, I mean you're learning it all in that language. So right now I'm teaching English in English. So if you're learning things, I'm trying to make it clear in English. I'm not using Spanish to teach you, English or whatever. So again, here's like the difficulty curve, like trying to climb up this wall over here. It is possible to do, but it's going to be more difficult. But for learning Japanese as a first language, it's like super easy. I mean, you're basically just getting lots of examples from other people. The difficult thing is if you try to do it yourself, which is what I was doing. So like in theory, this is how children are learning the language, and children should be getting lots of good examples because they're hearing that from other people. Lots of other people are teaching them the language. For me, it was a bit more difficult. I'll just kind of draw this line up here. So it's easier than that one. It's like we're gonna make it like the other way. It's a bit easier to do. But I'm still making it a little bit hard, or it is a little bit hard, because I have to teach myself the language, and that's hard to do. It's hard to like to learn a language as a first language and teach yourself that language as a first language. All right. But if you have someone to help you do it, then of course it's really easy, because it's just other people telling you what things mean. You understand things very easily, and so you become very fluent. And this is why you look at little kids, and kids don't really have this problem about motivation, because everyone else is just getting them fluent automatically in the language. All right. So what I did for helping people learn English is like, I'm basically like your parent. I'm like a parent and an expert and a guide at the same time, and trying to make the process very easy. So instead of learning Japanese as a first language, you're learning English as a first language. All right. But again, like there's still some effort. All right. So it's like you have to watch a video, you know, like you have to push play or make some kind of time to do something. So there's always some kind of effort. And because you need some kind of effort, you're going to get those mental things that pop up that think, wait a minute, like I don't have time for this, or do I really care about this? You'll find lots of doubts, excuses, reasons where other people will laugh at you or something like that. All right. So again, the idea, like if the path, you want to make the path as easy as possible, but there's always some kind of effort there. Okay, there's always something. And so if there is anything, like you got to make sure you're making it like, you know, get that fire. All right. So remember, like when little kids are trying to learn a language, like there's lots and lots of natural pressure on them to learn it, even if the teaching is not so good. But because children get so many examples of the language, they just naturally come to understand it without sitting and studying anything. And like humans have been learning to speak for way longer than there has been any kind of writing. So if you think about learning through textbooks, even natives use textbooks when they start getting into school. But for thousands and thousands of years, people have been learning to speak without textbooks. You don't need a textbook to learn to speak. And you just get that naturally because you're getting lots of examples all in the language you're learning. All right? So again, this is the easiest way I have found to get fluent. And so if you make it really easy for people to get fluent, they get fluent easily. But remember, there's still some kind of effort there. And if any kind of effort, even again, like if something is really easy to do, there's still going to be some reason why you're not going to do that thing. So you have to create, even if it's a non-logical reason, an emotional reason why you will do something, you need to create that thing. But it's pretty easy to do, all right? So I told you, I'll mention this again one more time just for new people watching. So if you think about your logical goal, you take that logical goal like needing to pass the TOEIC test. And I say, okay, why do you need to do that? You continue to ask yourself why until you get to that emotional reason. So I need to pass the TOEIC test. Why? Well, because I need to get a job. Okay, why is that important to you? Because if I don't get a job, then my family will die. Okay, that's a good reason. You know, there's some like the actual emotional reason there, like I would be disappointing to my family if I don't do this. All right, it would be very shameful for me if I don't do this. All right, so that's, again, it could even be a negative kind of emotion. Like for me, I'm using basically a negative emotion of pride in that way. Like my children know some vocabulary I do not, you know. And of course they're going to do that. That makes sense. But I'm using that as a reason to push me to do something. Okay? All right. So remember, like you don't have to try to force yourself. Like you should find an easy way to do something, whatever that is, learning to play the guitar or something. But you'll still need to find some kind of actual non-logical reason why you should do that thing. All right. So even the best students should be thinking about that. Just like, I mean, that's why I gave the examples of Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. And these are two people who are at the top of their game. They are the best at what they do, and they still come up with some kind of non-logical reason. They create, a drama or something like that to make it interesting for them. All right. Let's see. I think I answered that one already. Let's see. I think I answered that one too. Let's see. And how to, let's see. Jamie again says, and how could people overcome those kinds, you would say those kinds of social pressure and enjoy learning? By the way, always thank you for your saying I enjoy it. Glad to hear it. Well, I think like if you're talking personally, I'd like to know more, Jamie, more details about if you're talking about your personal situation or you're talking about in general. But like the two things I'm trying to do as a teacher, I know I have to deal with both of these things. I can't give you like really difficult, confusing lessons and then tell you like, well, just get out and do it, like that's not good teaching at all. I have to make the process really simple, and I actually have to help you, if I can, find your own motivation to do that. So I can't motivate you, but I can like help you find that thing. So I know I have to do both of those things. And so let's say the Japanese government should also be thinking about this. Like the Japanese government or the Korean government, whatever, if their goal is to get lots of people speaking English or doing anything, like you have to make the process easy, and you also have to show them like how to be motivated to do that thing. Because lots of people, again, they will naturally think about the reasons they can't do something. That's just the natural process, what most people do. It's always easier because there are so many of these things. It's infinite. You can always find another reason not to do something. You can always find another reason not to do something. But you only need one good reason to do that thing. And if it's strong and if it's more powerful than these other ones over here, then you will accomplish that thing. Okay, so if I'm the Japanese government, like let's say not even learning English, right now the Japanese government, and I don't know about Korea, but they probably have a similar issue, but young people are like not getting married and having kids, so you have a population decline. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's not really, I'm not here to talk about that, but if it's the goal of the government to motivate people to do that, they're basically making it more difficult for people to have kids. So they're not dealing with the path issue over here of like, how do we actually make it easy for people to do that? So like if we made it easier for more people, like people thought like the future was going to be, I don't know, like more positive or whatever than the present, then more people would try to have kids. You don't have to convince people to do it. You have to make the path easy and then remind them why you're doing that thing. And then usually the problem will solve itself. So in the larger population for a government, that's how I would do that. But that's the same thing people should be doing individually as they're trying to learn. All right, let's see. I think I got that one too. All right, Jill says, so cool. And Kazim says, I'm glad to see you, watching you from Iraq. Welcome. And Jerema says, hi, teacher. And ASDF, again, could I learn Japanese with English? Are there any benefits to learning two or more languages at the same time? Well, you could do that, but I would not try to learn Japanese like through English. You're learning them separately in the same way that you might take two different classes in college. Like I can learn a science class and a computer class at the same time. But I'm not trying to like learn Japanese through English or something like that. Let's see, being the best doctor in you, or like your university or whatever. Yeah. So if that's important to you, that's your reason. Think about like why that is. So again, like you could have a goal of being the best at whatever, but you'll notice like in the examples with Michael Jordan and Tom Brady that I gave, they're giving very kind of low-level motivation for themselves, which is like, that guy said I couldn't do it. So like Michael Jordan, like he doesn't really need to prove he's the best because he's already the best. So he's actually finding a very low reason to continue working hard. And that reason is like, well, that guy just said I'm not a good player. So basically he's saying like, not only that I have to be the best, but I have to prove I am the best to every person. So everybody who knows my name or ever heard of me should be saying I'm the best. And if I see like a little kid or some guy, some person watching a game is like, yeah, Michael Jordan's pretty good, but he's not like the best. It's like, what? Like, I am the best. Let me prove to you I'm the best. And I'll shoot like, 50 points or whatever in a game or something like that. And so the point is like, continue to ask yourself why until you really feel confident about something. Okay, so you feel like, yeah, like you have that, when you feel that fire, the more you ask why, the easier it is to find that thing. Let's see. I am into business, glad to hear it, and I think I saw the movie Someone Gets Killed by a Bear. Yeah. Bio says, Drew, do you still experience aha moment when learning Japanese? Yes. So every day, I'm still, again, I have that fire to learn Japanese, and I become fluent in individual words and phrases as I remove the doubt from those things. So I can say I'm a good Japanese speaker about the things I know. And I am continuing to expand this as I learn new ways of describing things or whatever. And so I become better like at these things as I add those, if that makes any sense. But I this is like a very, very quick thing I'll mention because I've mentioned this in almost every video. But you really become fluent in things as you understand them individually. So individual words and phrases rather than like trying to get fluent in English. So you get fluent in a grammar point as you understand how to use it well, rather than like trying to memorize it or get a translation of it or something like that. So you might understand something to a low degree where you only have exposure or awareness of a particular grammar point or vocabulary, but you don't really have ownership. You don't really feel 100% confident that you'll speak correctly about something. And if you don't feel that, then you're probably not going to speak. So when you're trying to learn things, you should be trying to get like as many aha moments as you can as you're learning, and you learn them for each individual thing. Okay, so continue to push yourself, and the way I push myself is reminding myself that my kids know more than I do. So again, I laugh because it's like a non-logical, it's kind of a silly reason, but it's silly the same way Michael Jordan cares about what some random player thinks about him that's clearly not as good as Michael Jordan. And the guy didn't even like say anything about that. And so I think there's actually a good video, a YouTube video about this particular story about Michael Jordan, and this other guy is like, I didn't say anything about Michael Jordan. But he really played me very badly. Another story actually about Michael Jordan. This happened during the I think it was the 1994 U.S. Olympics, or not? It wasn't the U.S. Olympics, but it was like the Barcelona. I think the one in was that Spain? I don't remember where that Olympics was. But this was where the men's basketball team from America, the Dream Team, went to play. This was the first year they're getting professional athletes, I think, like actual players from the NBA going, and they're making this like really good all-star team of players to be in the Olympics. And so you had all the best players in the NBA at that time, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. There's a documentary about this. But at the time, two of the players from that team, so Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, they were both playing on Chicago, where I'm from. They were playing on Chicago's team normally, the Chicago Bulls. And the manager of, I don't know if he was the manager, I think it was like Jerry Krause is his name, I think. I forget. Anyway, he's recruiting a player named Tony Kukoc. I think he's from Croatia, I think. I forget. It's not really important for the story, but Tony Kukoc is like the best player in his country, and he's going to meet them in the Olympics. And so Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen they're like so angry. I mean, they should be happy that they're going to get another good player on their team, but they're using that to create that fire for themselves, where they get really angry that like their player or their manager is like finding another good player, and he thinks like, he said, "You think that guy can play?" And so Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, every time they play, like they're basically going to like really hurt Tony Kukoc as much as they can, just because they just have that fire. And so even Tony Kukoc was talking about it. He was like, I couldn't do anything. He was like, these guys they were like really on me, and he was just a really good basketball player also. And he came to America and helped the Bulls win more championships. But it's just interesting to hear that. Like they were like, what? And you're like, you think he's a good player? I'm going to show you I'm a good player. And so there's no logic to this. It's like when you're trying to think about the logic of why something happens, often it's the emotional fire that gets you the thing you want. Yep. Tony Kukoc from Yugoslavia. Was that the Yugoslavian team? I thought it was. I don't know where that, like what that team was in that Olympics, but I don't remember that name being Yugoslavia. But if you look that up, yeah, I'm sure you can find that. Tsuba says, Drew Sensei, nice to see you with the DAP there. It is too hot and humid here in Japan. Yes, we're experiencing that here in Nagasaki. I don't know if you have rain. I think you're in. Aren't you in Tokyo? I don't know where you are, but. Akara says, hi, Drew. Could I say like this? After you have been learning English from you for 2 months, and my English is starting better and better by the day. Now I understand a lot what you are teaching. Yeah, you can say after 2 months, I'm understanding more. That would be a simple way to say that. Can I use English to learn another language like Spanish or Portuguese? I wouldn't learn English, or I wouldn't use English to learn a different language, but I would just learn that language in that language if you can find someone who can help you do that. Or you can try to do it yourself like I did, which was a real pain. So again, like I'm trying to teach myself Japanese. Like first I'm trying to learn Japanese by myself, then I'm at least, I found a better way to do it. But the easiest way is really to have other people who know how to teach it to you. What are the things to be considered to get fluent in English? Basically, you just need to make sure you eliminate the doubt that stops you from speaking. That's it. That's the basis or the foundation of being able to communicate. So for most people, you will not speak if you have doubts about vocabulary or pronunciation or grammar or whatever. And so that's the thing you need. That's the real problem you need to solve for getting fluent. So even if you know some vocabulary, how well do you know that vocabulary? If you still have doubts about it, you should review that vocabulary more. So getting fluent is really just removing doubt, all right? I talked about this recently, like you have a block of wood and you're trying to carve like a statue or something in that, and the statue is always there, but the wood around it is like the doubt you have when you're trying to speak. So you know what you want to say, but there's some kind of doubt around that that's preventing you from speaking. So you need to clear that doubt or whatever the questions you have or uncertainty about that thing, and that's what's going to help you speak. So that's the fastest, easiest way I can explain that. So the fastest way to get fluent is to eliminate or destroy or to stop or end the doubts that stop you from speaking. The fastest way to get fluent is to eliminate the doubts that stop you from speaking. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Buddy says, hi. Elda says, hey there, what's going on? Mohammed says, it's been 2 years now. I'm in the U.S. I'm not able to speak English with people generally, but sometimes I couldn't find the right, I am able to speak with people. Sometimes I can't find the right words during the conversation, especially the moments when I feel doubt. Yes. And so like you have to clear these doubts basically one at a time. And so like for me trying to learn Japanese, I will maybe hear a new grammar point or something like a new thing I'm learning right now, and I still feel doubt about it, is sae. And this is like the English equivalent would be like even something, like kodomo sae dekiru, or kodomo de sae dekiru, like even a child could do something. But I still need like many more examples, and in even trying to get many different examples from different people, it's still confusing for me. So I still have doubt about that, so I'm not going to be able to use it fluently. But when I get that aha moment, usually after I have enough examples, or if I have a good teacher who can explain something, and it's rare to find that, but if I have someone who can explain something very well, then I feel confident using it. So you really get fluent in these things individually as you understand them better. And it says, thanks for your motivation. It's my pleasure. All right, Jamie says, I couldn't agree more. The path is much easier and fun when we learn a language as first one. Yeah. Louis says, I bought your English course already. Welcome to the program. Boa noite do Brazil, Drew. Well, good evening. Let's see. And Izzy says, a good teacher, that guy speak English so easily to understand. Yes, if you're talking about me, yes, I'm intentionally being understandable so that you can follow what I'm saying, you don't have any questions, and then it's like the first level for understanding more difficult native speakers. So what we do in Fluent for Life, we start you with helping you understand this, so you get lots of examples of understandable English, but then we show you, kind of lead you to understand much more difficult examples. Let's see. Right. What is the difference between humble and modest? That's a good question. I'd have to think about that. Humble and modest. I mean, you could be. Humble is like it's like the opposite of having lots of pride, and like you could be modest in like maybe you like you don't like tell like so much about yourself. I'm just trying to think about a person who could be like who they could be modest, but they're not necessarily humble. So you could, like, let's say you're like really good at, I don't know, playing the guitar or whatever, and I don't talk about that much. Like, I personally have a lot of pride about that, but I'm modest. Like, I don't mention much about it. There's also the meaning of modest where like you're like, you don't like women dressing where they're like showing a lot of skin or something like that. Like a modest woman would be the opposite, but that's not really connected to humble. So you have to go deeper into the understandings of the word, and this video is already 80 minutes long. But if you look at the differences in vocabulary for particular situations, it becomes easier to understand that. So it's a good question, but you have to think about like using humble versus modest in a particular situation, which I don't want to go into because I'm like, this just isn't the video for that. But that's how you would do that. All right, let's see. Sabir says, I'm late. It's okay. Remember, you can watch these videos anytime. Elizabeth says, humble is a virtue of the quality of human intelligence. Wise. Well, you could put a lot of things in that description, I guess. Kazim says, your topic is very important to living a great life. Without motivation, it's difficult to dodge the pressure. Yes. So I'm talking about this mainly for people learning English, but again, it works for anything. That's why I was using excuse me, like examples like Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. So those are sports things, but it's the same basic idea. Elizabeth says, how do you keep American events up to date living in Japan? Usually just hearing about that from other people. So if I was talking with some people and they reminded me about July 4th. So I always forget about July 4th because in Japan it's just a day. It's not like, yay, it's like July 4th right now, but nobody is outside barbecuing or anything like that. Let's see. Elder says again, Drew, I'm definitely catch every point of your basketball story. Very interesting. Thanks. Glad to hear it. Yes, I want to give a few different kinds of stories, really. I don't know why I'm thinking more about basketball for this one, but just because sports it's a little bit different from language learning. Pedro, teacher, your price in the website and Facebook and others is totally different. They are U.S. and yeah, well, that makes sense. Sometimes we're running like a promotion, and you will find, if you find a cheaper price like from an ad, then I recommend you get that. But we have the normal prices of things on our website. So if you find a good price, then I recommend you join the program. But that's kind of like a typical thing. Like you'll find different prices for things all over the place. It just depends on where you get them, or if you have a coupon or whatever. And that's for many different organizations or companies or stores or whatever. Molly says, how to clear the doubt that prevent you from speaking English? Well, Molly, you have to do that individually for, whatever words and phrases you're trying to use. But that's why I want to remind people, you don't really get fluent in English. You get fluent in particular words and phrases or grammar points or whatever. So the particular vocabulary you're learning, whatever that is, if you have a doubt about something, then that's where you focus. So that becomes the opposite of that. You want to clear the doubt by getting many more examples of that thing until you get that aha moment where you really understand something. And so if you watch my videos, you will see many examples of this, but this is what Fluent for Life is. So the whole point of the program is to take you through the steps that get you fluent and help you understand things like a native. So if we can clear the doubt, then you will naturally start speaking things without worrying, because the doubt is gone, and the doubt is what stops you from speaking. So if you're doing it by yourself, just like I was trying to get fluent in Japanese, and I still am getting fluent basically in Japanese by myself, I'm spending time getting many examples about something like this. Like I've been spending 3 days trying to get many examples about this. All right. Now people think well, who cares if you know this particular grammar point? There are many ways to express something. It's personally important to me. I'm creating that fire for myself just for, something even small and silly, like one little, phrase. It's like sigh, who cares? I could easily find other ways to express myself. But if I think there's a phrase or grammar that I just couldn't understand, that would make me feel, there's that key word about feeling, that would make me feel disappointed. So if my child, for example, could use this, but then I could not, I would feel very bad about that. I would feel very bad about that. Again, this is not a logical thing. This is about finding that fire. That's why I call it fire. The motivation comes from that. It's not coming from a logical reason I should get a job so I can earn money or whatever. Earn money for what? What is the point of that? So you have to think, you have to ask yourself why until you get to that real fire. All right? That's where we get where we're going. All right, let's see here. We're at 90 minutes already. Oh my goodness. I think we're getting to the finish line, though. Let's see. From Guinea, West Africa, Tom Choa. Hi, Drew. Do you have a video that gives examples of English fluency bits? If you search the YouTube channel, you should probably find some. And we also cover this in Fluent for Life. Canaro says, hi, Drew. I've noticed that people who don't care if they're making mistakes while speaking achieve their goals faster than the ones who know the language better but don't dare to speak. Yes. So again, there are people who don't care about doing something, and for me, I care about making mistakes when I speak. And when I realize I have made a mistake, even if, let's say I'm saying something, and this happens to me sometimes, I feel confident that I'm saying something, and then I will be corrected later. I will hear it in a movie or a TV show, and I will feel really embarrassed about that. I will think, oh my goodness, I've been saying this incorrectly this whole time. And so I very quickly I learn, okay, I should correct that thing. And so some people, they worry about whatever their particular thing is, that being able to communicate, typically if that's an important thing for them, if they're communicating well in their native language, then typically they will care more about communicating well in the language they're learning. But other things that maybe you don't care so much about, you don't care. So let's say I don't know much about, playing some sport. And I go out and try to play that sport. I don't care if people think I'm bad at that game, because I know I'm bad. I'm just learning how to play, so I wouldn't feel bad about that. But for learning a language, I care about communicating well in English. So I also care about communicating well in Japanese or whatever other language I'm trying to learn. So it depends on the person. It also depends on the thing that you're doing. And the same person can feel like they care about one thing, but they don't care about something else. And so you have to find that balance. For you personally, if you care about making mistakes in the language, then you should correct that problem. You can and for some things, it actually is more important than others. For language communication, if I need to communicate well for a job, then I should actually solve that problem. I can't just be confident and speak incorrectly. That will just look stupid, and I would probably not get the job or do whatever it is I'm trying to do. So there are situations where you do have to make a strong effort to solve that particular doubt. But yes, like you will find some people who don't care, and maybe they don't speak very well anyway, but they don't care about that. All right. So it's interesting, and you find that when people don't care about something, they can either do it very well or do it very poorly. It just depends on the person. Let's see, Pedro again, talking about your course, your website offer the amazing 29, but the offer another. I think you have that backwards, Pedro. But yes, so if you see typically and this is the way advertising works. So we don't also just so everybody knows if you have not noticed already, for my videos you will not find advertising on my videos. But we do use advertising because we're trying to tell other people hey, we have a really good way to help people, and so that's what we do. So often advertisements will have, and this is not just for us, but people will have a lower price or something to attract people to come give something a try because it's new. But on our website we will have typically the normal prices of programs, and so people do pay both depending on how they find us. Let's see. Elizabeth said, when I don't remember the right word, I have doubt of my mental acuity. Yes, and it's okay to you will forget words sometimes, and that's just going to happen. But you can choose to focus more on that particular thing, solve the problem by ending the doubt. And once you understand something, then you basically have it forever. So you get that aha moment, now I understand what something means. And usually I do that. I give examples of that kind of thing in lots of my videos. I'm just spending more time in this one talking about mindset and motivation. Let's see. Pedro again, New Zealand will have a new law to force school to teach phonics. Oh, really? Huh, that's interesting. They should be teaching phonics. It's a good idea. They should also use my app. So I created that just for, I think I sent an email and I got a reply back. This was, a few years ago. I was talking about talking with some actually pretty high up minister in education or something in New Zealand about using Frederick. And I don't think they're using it, but they could. But anybody who wants to learn how to speak the language correctly, how to spell, how to understand, and especially learning phonics, they should get the app. And you can do that by clicking on the link in the description below this video. Jano, the best. Let's see, speaking English with a lot of mistakes or take time to find the right word, speaking which is the best way for someone to learn English. It depends on who you are, I guess. If you care about that and it's not important to your life to speak correctly, then you can just keep talking, I guess. But if it is important, then you should find the things that you are uncertain about, solve those by getting many examples until you understand it, and then you move on to the next thing. Pedro again, what do you think even native country is caring about it now? What is the opinion for us adults learn phonics now? Yes, and most of the people who get Frederick are adults because they have been learning English and they have trouble with spelling or understanding English pronunciation, and it's much easier if you learn it with phonics. So phonics doesn't cover everything, but it covers most things, and we show how in the app, even for things that don't use phonics or don't follow those same rules, we show you how to learn those words too. Faraz says, how long have you been in Japan? I've been here about 20 years, a little over 20 years. Ash says, hey, Drew, I know that my speaking skills are growing, but still I feel that I can't speak with people. So is there any way to remove this thing? Well, think about what specifically that is. What is the thing that's stopping you? Maybe it's doubt about particular words or phrases or whatever, but you need to solve those problems. That's it. When I force my brain to speak, it gives me the words. Huh. Alexia says, dear Drew, you're really navigated me, or you can say navigating me. All right, man, it sounds a little bit, but I understand what you're saying. And my friend, to get the right way, you are personally share that fire with us. You are an amazing guy. Glad to hear it. Well, again, in Miami, well, welcome to America. Enjoy and remember, find that fire. If you find that fire, there's really nothing you can't do. Could you tell me more about your course? Is there anything special about it? When people say what makes the program differently, what makes the program different, I usually ask them what they've been doing to learn English. And then they typically say, well, I'm trying to learn English through my native language, or even if I'm learning English, I have a teacher that doesn't really sound like native English speakers, and just kind of the typical things. And then I say, well, the reason you're not becoming a good speaker is because you're using all those typical methods that actually stop you from speaking. And they stop you from speaking because they don't clear the doubt that actually allows you to speak. And so what we do, specifically in Fluent for Life, is we really help you understand the language well, because there are different levels of understanding. You could say there are different levels of fluency. So you could have a very low level of fluency where you just hear things but don't really understand them, or you understand them a little bit and you can recognize them in conversations, or you actually are able to understand things and you can use them confidently and fluently. So what happens is most people only understand things a little bit, so they can recognize them. They think they know the vocabulary, but they actually don't know the vocabulary well enough to speak. And so that's what we do in Fluent for Life. We actually get you fluent by helping you understand the vocabulary really well, by eliminating the doubts you have that stop you from speaking. And when the doubts are gone, you start speaking. So that's how it works. So if you'd like to learn more, though, you can click on the links in the description below this video. Thank you. You are amazing. Well, it's my pleasure. It's glad to be amazing. Let's see. But I'm always trying to think of better ways to explain the program. But that's basically it. We clear up the doubts that stop you from speaking. So we do that by helping you understand the language like a native, rather than learning it like a typical student would. All right. What do you think about AAVE? I don't know what that is. And Canaro says, that fire in me is from my childhood, so I burned a lot by that fire. Yeah, so if you have a reason to do something, even if it's from your childhood or whatever, another example from my own childhood, I was always a bad reader. I hated reading. It was really difficult for me. I didn't want to do it. And then I remember very clearly I was in an interview to get into high school. And my mom and I were sitting at a table with a guy from the high school, and I was in 8th grade at that time, so this is just before going into high school. And he said, he looked at my reading scores, and he said my scores were 2 levels below where they should be. And I remember looking at my mom, and my mom was just she was trying not to look disappointed in front of this guy when she's hearing this information. But she looked at me, and I could tell, I know my mom very well. I know she doesn't need to make a big, a really obvious face, but I could feel it. And I was like, all right, I need to figure this out. So at that moment, I was like, all right, I need to find something where and this is I'll make this last point about motivation here. When you've probably heard the expression, where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. I don't want to make this video too long. We're at 100 minutes already. Where there's a will, there's a way. So the will is the desire to do something. The will. And so it basically means if you have a strong desire, where there's a will, the way will be found. The way will be found. And so when I, at that moment, and I remember this, it was very clear, I could feel the embarrassment that my mom had, because my reading level was so low compared to where it should have been. It was like, I don't know, 5th or 6th grade reading level when it should have been obviously 8th grade or better. But I just hated reading so much. And so at that point, like, I felt something change in me. Now, I didn't know how I was going to become a good reader, but I just knew like I had to do it. Like I felt like I must, be able to prove to my parents that I can actually read. And so like, it's interesting, not long after that, I was introduced to some comic books about like Eastern philosophy. And I still have some of those books today. But like I wasn't looking for that specifically, but that was like the way, like I became a good reader by reading those books, and it got me interested in other things, and so that's part of my own history is from that. But again, it was interesting. Often, if you just have the will, the way will find you. Okay, so you will find a way, or the way will find you. Like that. That's basically how it happens. But it's because when you have the will, you don't really worry about like excuses like, well, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it. You just find a way, or the way finds you. And it's amazing. It's like the universe will provide you the things, or you will notice those more in your life or whatever, but you will have those experiences that make something possible if you have the will. All right, so I guess it's good to end on this topic here. It ties up this whole thing nicely. But again, like, try not to think about the kind of higher level logical reason why you want to do something. Think about the deeper, what is the real reason you're doing that thing? And if you have a really strong reason, you will find, like, things will naturally find themselves to you automatically. So that's kind of how you found the right way to do something. I could probably have like organized this video better if I was like trying to think about this whole process, but this like covers everything basically. So just to recap everything, if you want to do something logically, like you want to get fluent or get a job or pass a test or whatever, try to think less about that particular goal and think about what is your deeper reason for doing that. Because if you don't have a deeper reason for doing that, it will be very difficult for you to overcome any doubts or uncertainty or whatever you have about that thing. But if you have a really strong reason, typically you will find a good way to do it. So for me, like getting fluent in Japanese, like at first I was like, yeah, like I can do this. I really wanted to come out here and be here, and I had a really strong desire to do that. And I found a way, and that way was learning Japanese as a first language. And so when I discovered that, I was like, oh wow, look at that. Like I had the desire, and the way found me. All right, so I didn't know where that was going to come from. You don't often know how it's going to happen, but usually it does. So it begins often with having a strong enough will. So the will, the idea or the deep desire or fire keeps you excited to, whatever, do your particular thing. All right, look, Prasanna says, I'm looking tired. I got a small bottle of water today, so this is easier to deal with while I'm shooting a video. All right, the home stretch. Last little comments over here. Last few comments. All right, nice class. I use your app. It's very useful. Glad to hear it, Pedro. If you know other people or you want to tell the people of New Zealand, are you in New Zealand? I don't know why you're mentioning that, but if you are in New Zealand, tell people to use it. We would like to add more voices in the future. So that's still a plan to have like American, like female voice and Canadian and British, and so people can hear the difference between those. Way will find me is better. Yes, so the way will find you, and that's why this expression is like, where there's a will, there is a way. Like there is a way. We don't know how the way will find us or if we will find the way, but we will get connected somehow, if that makes sense. All right. Quem acredita sempre alanca like, okay, that's Brazilian. Okay. Have a variation where, when, this expression. All right, well, we've gotten to the end of this video, and I can rest my voice. Look at that, 108 minutes. Oh my goodness, I did not anticipate that from this video. But I had lots of motivation. You know, I want to make sure other people can experience the things that they would like to do. So hopefully this has been beneficial for you. If it has, do click the like button. Let other people know about this video, because YouTube is really bad about sharing our content, probably because we don't monetize it. I think maybe YouTube would share our content more if we had, put ads on all of our videos. But let's see, Faris says, yesterday I really wanted fried chicken. Now I'm eating it. Follow your dreams. Keep learning. Yes, very good. Yeah, like when you feel that, you're like, man, I just really want something, like the universe opens up, even if it's just fried chicken, you know. There you go. All right, well, again, click on the links in the description if you'd like to learn more. Most of the things we talk about in these YouTube videos, it's explaining the principles of fluency, like talking about the principles of motivation, the mindset you need to get fluent. But if you'd really like me to just get you fluent and help you understand the language, to clear up the doubts that stop you from speaking, click on the links in the description below this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.